Welcome back to Wealth Plan TV. This week we're looking at estate planning, and this is actually the last show of the second series, but more about that later. You remember that last time we looked at estate planning, we spoke about how to get your records in order. We decided that that was good anyway, because with good records you could actually begin to create wealth. It just shows how all of the components of Go Dare tend to fit together. We called this active planning, I guess because you do it with a view to making life better. What I wanted to do is have a look at defensive planning this week. And that's the things that you might plan to do before somebody loses mental capacity. What I mean is getting your house in order before it's too late. We've touched on this in previous episodes. Much estate planning must be done while your elderly relatives still have testamentary capacity, or more brutally, before they lose their marbles. The issues that need testamentary capacity are wills and powers of attorney. And we've spoken about these a lot, but let me ask you a question. Have you an up-to-date will, and do you have powers of attorney for yourselves? No? Well, I suppose you're young and invincible. Do your parents have wills and powers of attorney up to date? No? Well, I suppose you can't tell your parents what to do, and there's probably years before they die. Okay then, do your grandparents have up-to-date wills and powers of attorney? Am I making my point here? You've been watching the show, you already understand the importance of this type of planning. Do it before it's too late. If you haven't done it, why haven't you? Probably you think it can wait, but tomorrow your parents or your grandparents, or even yourself, could suffer an accident or illness that would rob them of the capacity to create plans to meet their desires. I don't want to nag, although I tend to think I am. Do it now. Okay, the softer non-legal side of estate planning is equally as important. Things like organ donation, body donation, cremation burials, services, church funeral parlour or cemetery. What music do you want? Do you want a wake? Last and final letters? Age services. Do you or your relatives want to stay at a home, in your own home, for as long as possible? Do you want to move to a retirement village as early as possible for the company? Do you want to sell your house when you move to aged care? Do you want to rent the house instead? All of these are decisions which have to be made. I'm going to stop there because I've set the flavour of the thing I wanted to talk about. Have you discussed all of these things with your partner? Or are you planning to leave the decision for somebody else to make at the worst possible time? For example, will they say, oh no, I can't stint on George's funeral, he wouldn't have liked that. But you would not like that at all. You would find the waste of money to be a bit of a shock. But if you are appalled from your grave at the behaviour, the only person who could have fixed it was you. So, do so now. Chat to your partner. Visit your parents and chat to them. Visit your grandparents. Death is a fact of life. It will not be hastened because you discuss it. Have an honest discussion with those you care about. Ensure that the last physical thing that happens to them matches their wishes. Now, before I leave estate planning this week, I want to talk briefly about funeral insurance, and there's heaps to say. Let's start with need. The adverts encourage us not to leave our children with a burden by taking out funeral insurance, but let's look at the worst possible case first. Parents have no money to pass on death. If they are so hard up, they certainly shouldn't be wasting money on insurance. So, children being so hard up, they can't afford to fund a funeral. In most states, funeral assistance is available if you have difficulty in meeting these costs. They're means tested based on the assets of the deceased and of the survivors, but it's quite possible. If everyone in the family is really skint and there's no government assistance, why don't you discuss having the body donated to science? Then there's no costs. Okay, I've dealt with the worst first because I think that situation doesn't apply to many. Let's look at those who are struggling a little bit. Funerals needn't be very expensive. A simple cremation without a hearse, a service in your local church can be amazingly cheap, particularly with good planning. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Now, for most of us, don't forget I'm still talking about funeral insurance here. Parents rarely die with no assets. If you get the house for nothing, then paying for a funeral is neither here nor there. Encourage your parents to spend their money on themselves rather than waste it on insurance, or failing that on their grandchildren. Cost of funeral insurance. Most insurances that guarantee acceptance are reasonably expensive because the risk has to be covered. So either they're expensive or they only cover for accidental death. Premiums on these types of insurances are still age related. If you live to be a squillion, there are two issues to consider. How much would you have paid to keep the cover in place? And the second is, would you still keep the cover in place, or would you have wasted the money you had spent to save burdening your children after giving them a house? My advice is, don't waste your money. Not everyone's situation is the same, of course. If your death would cause financial hardship, then go and get some real insurance. Maybe you're paying for the education of a grandchild and you'd like it covered, or you've got a disabled son or daughter, or many other things. If you need life insurance, go and get it fair income. Level the premium so you can still afford to pay it later. Talking about standard life insurance, what I might pick up later is building an estate with life insurance. Okay, finally, I had a thought the other day which I thought I'd share with you. The thought was, why don't you write your own eulogy? I was thinking that it would be cool because it means that when you're buried, your words will be played at the funeral. It'll save somebody writing it. But it was for the non-obvious reason I thought it was a good idea. And that was related to goals. Write about all your successes in life, all those who you've helped, all those for whom you've made a difference, those who would really miss you and why. And if you had trouble writing this eulogy, you have the rest of your life to fix it. Just write some goals and do it. Okay, I'll see you after the break.